All right, we are live and welcome everybody to our Christmas edition. Not that there's anything special about it.
Besides, it's Christmas.
It's going to be Christmas. Yeah, the way I figured it, unless people really want to know that nerdy stuff, I don't really have much to talk about as far as the article goes. So,
Well, you know what? We did get and we did get a couple of emails about your article saying, praising you for taking on such a odd, I guess. I don't know. I forget the word they said.
for lack of a
Topic
better
where,
topic,
yeah.
yeah.
And now, I mean, I don't understand everything you wrote in there, but as far as the ins and outs of it, but it did make sense. I understand the
Yeah, you can generalize it down into
yeah.
simple statements. It was just a lot of really heavy nerd speak. Ooh, we lost somebody. Too bad. Okay. So what do we got? We got any news? Any news that we
Well, no, I mean, first, obviously, it's Christmas. Where's your Christmas tree, Curtis? Show
My
everyone your
Christmas
Christmas
tree
tree.
is hidden. Yeah, I got I'll have to raise it up on the platform. There you go. I actually have it on a dimmer, but you can see when you dim LEDs, you can see how efficient the red ones are. And
Yeah.
you won't see the blue because by the time I turn it up where the blue comes on, here it will just slowly, gradually.
Well, and through Zoom, okay, now we can see some
This is
colors.
really blown out. Now you can see some blue. And this thing's connected to a 9-volt battery. This is why you want resistors. Otherwise, this tree would be black. there's full power right there.
Not screaming.
Yeah, so let's just tone it down there. I think that's all right. So there's your Christmas tree on top of a VHS set. We don't we don't want to get blocked by YouTube.
We're getting sued now. That's copyright infringement right
Demonetized
there.
for our what five? How many viewers do we have?
I'm just gonna have George call you because you know mine's on a plain cardboard box. So.
You're pretty open-minded. It's those guys at the who owns them now? Paramount,
Disney.
Disney. Oh yeah, you just get sued by Disney.
Are we gonna edit all this out because it's got nothing to do with our?
I don't think so. It's Christmas fun. We got to enjoy ourselves.
We're totally phoning this one
in. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. What do you got? You're there at the headquarters. What kind of news do we got running around? We did have, didn't we? Didn't we just have an update? I think we just had an update.
No. Well, there was a minor update. I think it was just like icons and stuff. It didn't change the version number or anything like that. And
I turned on one of my CS3s and it hadn't been operated in a while, and all of a sudden, oh, I have an update.
So. Yeah, I only update our show CS3 and one of the 3 that I use here in the offices. So I don't. I only update the one. Cool. Or the 2. Can you even see the lights on my tree? They're not even. You can't even see them.
It's kind of so tiny out there right now. It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Let me.
Well, all I can say is they're going, and it's beautiful.
Let me pop up my CS3 here screen. Let you guys know what version we are on.
Should be 2.5.2 parentheses 6.
Ah, very good. Very good. Yes. 2.5.
Nothing changed. I checked all 3: mobile station, central station 2, and central station 3, and none of them changed. So
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So I did find in the course of trying to find an article to write about, I tried to, you know how we were able to download sounds and play them through the CS3.
Yeah.
I couldn't find that in the current version of the software. Do you know?
Oh, well, you should read my article.
No, I don't know if it's there anymore. I just can't remember how you did that. I didn't read your article again. Of course, I had to look up the index and figure out what it is. So let's shoot through that process just for the hell of it. Let's see what it is. So if you want to share the screen and show us how it's done, I will applaud your wizardry.
Oh my God! Well, I don't even have that newsletter up. I don't even know which one it was.
Do it off of memory. Let's see how good you
do it off of memory. Oh, well,
Well, here at least I'll show you where I am. So yeah, sorry, there's no specific topic currently right now. Sorry if you guys feel like we're rambling, but it's just kind of a little point of discovery. So look,
And
I
feel free to,
interrupt us.
you know, pop up any questions you might have.
So there's this new see, I found this icon here. So if we go to the articles list
You're,
and
you have your closed captioning on?
closed captioning, no,
Yeah,
it's not being shown.
yeah, it's being shown.
Okay, all right. So closed captioning. It's I don't know if you're messing with my internet. We're gonna add an article. Well, let's not add it there. Let's edit
Oh,
the article list.
it was my closed captioning.
So if we go to our miscellaneous articles, right? You actually have like the speaker icon, right? And that's what that is. We can scroll. I believe we can. So it's weird. How did I get that other icon, right? So there's all this kind of stuff that's been going on. But the thing is, if you open this up in
Wait,
edit mode,
one second, Curtis, if I can, we have an anonymous attendee asking if you can turn your microphone up.
who me?
Yes.
Okay, I wonder if my mix is wrong. Is this better? How's that? Is that getting
I,
any
I,
better?
I like how you said, is
Or does
this
that
better?
go
And then you
worse?
didn't talk.
Did I just turn the volume down?
No, no, I think you're okay. You might just need to move your mic a little closer.
Wait, I'm getting mixed wrong. Here, I can do that. Is that better?
I can still hear you, so it's worse.
Thanks. Thank you.
It's
I wonder
a
if
little
it has
better.
anything to do. It shouldn't have anything to do with OBS Studio. My capture.
So it's not in there. That's not where you put it. You put the sound file on, well, when I did it, I put it on the card that goes, that the CD drive, the
Yeah.
compact flash or
Well,
whatever it is.
the thing is, the way I kind of picture it, this function here should be able to allow a sound, right? Other than what does it do? So,
Well, yes, you could probably put it into a event script then.
let's let me get out of share, and if you can sort of meet out your process.
Well, I don't really remember. I wasn't prepared
Okay,
for this part of the
read your article.
nobody told me there was gonna be a
Read
test
your
on this.
article, man.
I know, that's why I
I
wrote it.
don't know how many times we've written stuff where I actually have to refer to my own articles and say, what did I write back then? And then
Oh, I do it all the time.
it's terrible when you say, well, that's wrong.
Well, yeah, what was I thinking?
Sorry, you can hear me typing, right?
What are you typing?
Just writing, welcoming the folks on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Yeah, weird. This is totally an ad lib one, isn't it?
This is kind of how when we're in a room, Rick and I are in a room together. This is how our thinking goes. It's all over the board. Um, let's see. There was a comment from gentleman when in event programming and you have selected a contact track. If there's a question mark in the upper left corner, what does it mean and how do you use it? Oh, that's a good question. Yes, that's typical use. Um, I can explain that really quickly here. Or let's not say really quickly. Nothing's ever really fast when I'm explaining stuff. All right, when you have an event, for instance, I'll create. Well, actually, let me reload a event because then I don't have to draw up all kinds of stuff. So let's restore one of my profiles. Let's do the full random. You guys have an insight into my layout. So this is how it works. When you restore a file, then you can bring back all this lovely stuff that you did on your layout. You can see this is very busy. Oh, this is the tracking program. You see all this stuff in the back there?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so let's just pull up an event here. When you have an event, right? All these things without the question marks are what we consider your actions. Okay, everything's going to happen. So, for instance, this is going to activate basically another event because these are nested events. And but we come to this question mark item. What's happening is on the layout, it's going to look at this contact track, which is doesn't matter what the label is, but it's going to ask it, is the contact track basically on or off? And if we go into edit mode, let's go into edit mode really quick. And I open this up. See, I have a setting. I can say the position is gray. Okay, and I'm going to actually set it back so I don't mess up my programming. What happens is it's going to ask this contact track, is this question, it's the question, is this condition on or off? Is there a train on this contact track or not? If it is on, then it proceeds on to the following steps. If it was off and this thing is asking is it's on, it's going to ignore the rest of these steps and not basically follow through with the rest of the event. So that's essentially what that question mark does. Now you don't have to use contact tracks. You can actually, let's say, look at stage one, it's a turnout. It's going to change the turnout to the right direction. But if I want it to basically ask, is this turnout set for a turn rather than straight? You see now there's a question mark in the upper left corner. Just be careful with this because, you know, if you don't use the central station to turn this turnout to right or left and you manually go to the turnout itself and change it, it's not going to match this. And, it could be weird stuff. You basically going to figure this out when you try it, when you use this stuff. But you can use this for signal lights. You can use it for turnouts. Anything that basically has, a condition which ways it's set that can be measured by the CS3. And so what I mean by measured by the CS3 is it's going to be able to, you can be able to check turnouts. You're going to be able to check signals, contact tracks, circuit tracks, anything like that. So yeah, you're looking at one of the hardest things I've ever had to do on a CS3. So
And so this this person asking the question,
mm,
his name's Rick, and it's not me. When you have trouble with this, call Curtis.
yeah. As much as I would like to say no, Rick's just not bright enough to know.
Well, actually, I know who he is, and he's the one that keeps calling me for all these answers. So if I could pawn a little bit of him off on you, I'm happy.
Merry Christmas. Yeah, I've spoken to Rick a couple of times. He's he's sounds like he's got a pretty involved layout. So
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
so all right. Well, there's a lot of questions. Is my volume okay still though? Is it? It's still too low.
The gentleman said it was a little bit better. I
Okay.
assume it's a gentleman, being the
Yeah.
uh, anonymous attendee.
All right. It seems like it's a little far away from me, but that's okay. Okay. All right. So what did you write about this?
What? Oh, you know what? I found the reference about having the CS3 do sound,
Okay.
creating sound, and you can pull it up on webinar number 12.
Here we go.
Can we just do reruns for this show?
Yeah. Today we'll just put on a sign that says we're on vacation. Here's your webinar number 12.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I can't answer that right now without going through and looking at it. I mean, that's why I write these things, so not so I will remember them, so I won't have to remember them.
Yeah, it's just interesting to me because I think even when I was looking for it, I couldn't remember how you loaded up sounds in there, and
I did it on the
You
on the
didn't.
card that you insert into the central station. I think you can do it on a USB also. That's where you store the file, the sound file. So you're not
Mhm.
using CS3 memory.
So
And
there's
then
actually no function in the operating system that allows you to upload a sound. That's what I was looking for.
you can from the USB or the expansion drive. I don't know what you want to call it.
So it has to be it has to be basically pre-stored. You can't load it up.
Correct. You can't go with the CS3 to a place and download it with the CS3. You have
Uh,
to load it onto the CS3
So it
like
knows
like an
so
image.
it knows where to find it, just
Yes.
like a restore file. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. And then if you keep it on that drive, it will not use the CS3 memory. So that's why they give you that drive.
Yeah, and the reason why I got down this rabbit hole is because I wanted to sort of show how you can use sounds in an event, essentially.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. It's station
Yeah.
sounds or whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, there was also an article in the Insider magazine a few years back about it, how to do it. I
Hmm.
think that might have been with the CS2. It might have been with the CS3. I forget which one. It's been so long. Um, but it's the same thing. You use a a speaker, which is amplified, which is basically like one of your Bluetooth speakers or something like that that has an auxiliary input.
Yeah, you need a powered speaker. Yeah.
Yeah, you need it powered. And then you can put it out in your layout and have it play on that, or it'll play on the speaker that's in the CS3.
Hmm.
So,
Is there a speaker on the CS3? I
yes,
know
there
I've
is.
never listened to it.
Yes, there is.
Sounds like an old AM radio, transistor radio.
Mono. No, it's actually a nice speaker. I mean, it's about yay big.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
that'd be good.
It's flat, almost looks like one of the locomotive speakers, except bigger.
Hmm.
Not, it's kind of flat and wide and
Something that you'd maybe see in an LGB locomotive.
yeah, it would work well in a 1 gauge or LGB locomotive.
Those things are pretty loud.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, they get
can
crazy.
imagine having if it was that loud on a HO. Be deafening.
There'd be somebody that would want to do it. I guarantee you. So yeah, I mean, if you want, we can get into my newsletter article, which was how to wire a brake module in
Yeah.
several ways. I mean, just over the years, we've come across several ways of how, that we figure you can wire a brake module. There's probably two or three more that I could have added, but they're kind of redundant um, at that point. Um, am I allowed to share here?
Yeah.
Yeah, here it is.
Yeah.
So, wiring a brake module, it's fairly simple. And let me try and expand this if I can. Put it where I can read it. Once again, we are not prepared. So, basically, all you need is a momentary control input to the brake module. And this isn't how to hook it up to the track. We've covered that, and the directions are fairly simple. You got 3 zones, and um, you put your track power in, and it feeds it out when it needs to. Basically, let's just call that simple. But to activate it and deactivate it, you need a momentary pulse from a source. Where in this image that I just covered up, um, the example is one of the simple control boxes. It's basically on and off, and that's what it'll do is it'll turn the brake module on and off manually. So you would be doing it by hand. Um, the next step up would be to use a read contact or a circuit track. Again, that's a momentary contact, and a momentary contact should be used. Um, because I don't think you need power going to the brake module. In fact, this is one thing I wanted to ask Curtis. Does it really matter? Can you use constant power like a M84? I mean, I know you can, but I've never tried the long-term effects of what it would do to a brake module.
If you constantly have power going through that,
Yeah,
uh, you're basically getting. That's a good question. I don't.
yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
really
something
would
we'd have to
recommend
look at.
looking.
It's not like we hook one of these up and, let it run overnight with power. So,
Well,
um,
the tricky thing is that, like if it was an AC module, for instance, and you had constant power going through that, what you're doing is you're flip flopping your polarity so much that it can't really be good for that, because it's
right,
basically turning on and off so much that it's probably not a wise thing to do.
right. But what about digital? I think it would, I know I've done it and I know it works. But I didn't do it for long. It was just a test type thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about the inner workings of the brake module,
But
because your entire track signal is really just going through the top of the diagram. That's all that's really being fed through there. So you kind of have to think of that lower part as just an inert switch, essentially. And if, you know, you could probably run it constant, but it's, honestly, I don't think it really does much. What happens is you just need to reverse, you're trying to reverse a switch. And
yeah, there's a relay in there.
yeah, it's just a relay. And, having something constant on a relay switch, it's kind of like you think of your turnouts. If your turnout motor is constantly going one way, it's going to be the same thing. You know, you reverse it, it's going to constantly be buzzing. I kind of
Right.
think.
So,
And
I mean, that's why I generally said it would, you should use a momentary contact. So
yeah,
anyway, sorry for that rabbit hole
aside,
we just went down.
call it an aside.
So the next way example I showed was if you're using one of the old analog signals. And I had done an article about how to use these analog signals with an M83 to make them digital, where that's basically it's doing the same thing, except this time you hook it up to a brake module also. So you'll have control of the signal and the brake module at the same time in the same button push or event script or whatever. um, they will both turn. Once when the signal is on red, the brake module turns on. When the signal is on green, it turns off. So that's what I called a hybrid control, because you're using an M83 to make both the signal and the brake module controllable digitally. But they are both technically analog devices. So I called it a hybrid. I don't know if that's what Marklin would actually call it. So full digital control is when you would connect it to a digital signal. And the digital signal can certainly turn the brake module on and off with a momentary pulse, just like um, an M83. So again, in this scenario, once the signal is red, the brake module is on, and when the signal goes green, the brake module is off. Moving along to the way Curtis and I like to do this is we like to separate the signal from the brake module or M83. This way we have independent control of both. And what this allows us to do is add another level of realism we've talked about before, that the brake module and the can be on when the signal goes green. So the locomotive won't won't take off because the brake module is still on, even though the signal's green. And the theory behind this is because a train leaves on a schedule, not just when there's a green light. It's not a car, it's not a traffic intersection. It needs to leave when it's time for it to leave. So just because the signal is green, that doesn't mean it should leave. That means it's clear to. That means the block ahead of it is clear. It can proceed, but the locomotive needs to wait for its time to go. This is more, I would assume, more for passenger service, because passenger service is more structured and scheduled, even though I know freight service in Europe does run on a schedule, but I don't know that they're on such a precise schedule as passenger. So that's what we like to do. So basically on our signals, we have them connected to track power, and that's it. We have them digitally controlled by the central station, and they can turn on and off, and the brake module can turn on and off separately. This allows us to put a delay in from when the signal turns green to when the brake module turns off. And we've done this on a couple of layouts. Curtis did it on his, I believe, and we've done it on some other friends. And when they have a get together and people are over there, they see the signal turn green and they want to go and push the locomotive because they think it's stalled. And as soon as they reach for it, it takes off, and they can't figure it out. And it's always good fun to have strangers, grabbing your locomotive and pulling it down the track. So, and then I had a thought: what if somebody has a brake module way off in the corner and a signal to control it, or if you can see it? And naturally, in this scenario, you would just connect the signal to the brake module, just like back here in figure 4. That way you wouldn't have to worry about it. But if you really wanted that realism for, to do whatever you want, I tested a turnout decoder to see if it would turn change the signal, because I figured turnout decoder is just like a M83. So I hooked one up, and yeah, a turnout decoder will control an M83. So there is basically a standalone decoder for an M83 if you wanted to go that route. The total idea of the most useless thing you could do, probably, because you can just control it with a signal. There's basically no reason for this. But if somebody does do it, I really want to know, and I really want to know why. Just out of curiosity. So that was it. That was what, 6 different versions of how you can hook up a brake module, 6 different ways. And still there's probably a couple more that I just didn't get to because they're
Yeah, I think one way you had, didn't you use brake modules with the didn't you use that with M84 to show
yes, I
how
did.
somebody with auto controller can do this?
Yes, I did. And that's what I kind of referred to in my article back here, where I said you can do it this way. But again, here, volume 31, number 3 and 4, that was like my article about doing routing with a mobile station, if all you have is a mobile station, and that's analog contacts, circuit tracks, read contacts, turning on and off signals. And then if you hook your brake module to M84, it will work also. If you have digital signals, then I'd have to rethink that wiring structure for digital signals, but they could probably be controlled, because that was the startup signals I used for that, and an analog signal. So I do believe it could work. Um, in an analog, so to say, routing scenario with an M84.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's what I
I
mentioned.
think there's a lot of variety in this.
There is,
It's
there
hard to
is. I mean,
cover
all
them
we've
all.
ever talked about was how to hook up a brake module, not what
Yeah.
to hook the brake module, what controls the brake module.
We do
So,
have one question. Somebody asked if you can explain the unused connections on the module.
oh, like this right here is for like an analog signal. Okay, and that would be for a standalone, say, all it is a light on the mast with wires coming out the bottom.
Yeah, I think so. Let me just kind of verify with you how I would look at it is in one case, like the digital signal can control the brake module, but in this instance, you would use the brake module to control the signal light.
Yes, yes. And those are just light signals. Those are just light bulbs that it's lighting. Um, they give in the signal module, brake module, they in the instructions they give instructions as if that was a 1 gauge signal, where they just come with a mast and the lights on them, and they're just wires. So that's what that port is for. This other port up here is just a secondary input for track power. So you could daisy chain your brake modules if you wanted to. Um, so that's all that these two ports are for. Um, we have a question.
Yeah, I stepped away for that. 030904, is that the one you were looking at?
No, well, that's I was going to the top question.
Okay.
Why some ESU decoders work the brake module and they go into reverse very fast. Yeah, you have to set the decoder up to work correctly. I basically when I come across a problem, I turn off anything in the decoder that might cause a problem in a brake section. I forget what those things are because I don't deal with ESU. Um, but all I know is that I turn off all
Yeah,
of
I
the
recall. I recall that was an ESU setting on the decoder
yes.
that makes it compatible with the brake modules. So you look in your ESU manual. The
Yeah.
ESU manuals are pretty well written. You can actually see some information
Yeah.
that you might not be aware of. So, and the thing is, yeah, it's ESU, but sometimes reading that manual helps kind of understand how sort of decoders can work. So you can apply it to, some of your Marklin decoders just because it's sort of a standardized configuration. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So another question was when the new Marklin basically the CS3 large manual is going to come out, and I know they're working on it. It's probably in production or probably going to be shipping fairly soon. I know they do the German version first and then the other languages that they're going to do.
did they release the German version already or not yet?
I am not 100% sure on that.
Yeah,
Being, I don't read it. I didn't really pay attention.
they're probably waiting for both translations. You never know
Yeah.
if the hang-ups in translation or not.
Um, we haven't seen a proof of it yet. We don't know if we will. We did on the last one.
Yeah, it's a lot to go through sometimes.
Yeah. You want to dive down your rabbit hole real quick?
I really don't. Yeah, we can take a quick look at it. I'll just pop up in my article. Since share,
Because
or
it
I'll
is
try to.
it is a little bit interesting.
I'll try to go through it as quickly as I can. Not that it'll be easier. All right, so you can see the document here. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so essentially, we're just the main thing to understand. These is the earlier sort of digital settings that we had for a Delta. You can see the little photo. I think it's the only photo that I have in there. Um, just had to take one of a Delta decoder. So the way we work normally is, when you look at a number, essentially, let's take this example right here, 1,101. We look at it and it doesn't make any difference to us. When we get up to 9, it zeroes out. This first digit zeroes out, and then we have the number 10. So that's why we refer to it, tens, hundreds, 1,000s. But in binary code, you only have two switches. It's either going to be up or down. So when these are off, it's basically a zero value, and when you go up, it's one. So, the more you toggle it back, it's still going to be 0 or 1. So how do they need to count to 3? This is off. The force switch goes up to 1, and when it comes back down, I literally had to do this with my hands. It took 4 digits and try to figure out how to count it up. So essentially, when you have a value of 0, there's no value. And we count by 2s in binary code, and which is fairly easy to do because you have 1, 2, 2 is 1, and if this would be 0, it'd still be 2. When this goes up to 1, you add the two numbers. 2 plus 1 equals 3. Marklin gets really tricky because they had what they called trinary code, and you have a two-way switch. So how do you do that? And I figured the way I could make the table work, because I found a table on Delta decoder because the numbers were really kind of screwy. I basically had to figure out, well, how's this thing counting up? So you have 1s, 2s. This is only going to have a value of 0 or 2, not 1. So it's skipping a number somewhere along the line. And because of the math, basically, if you have 2 twice, it would be 4, right? And I don't want to get too heavy because it's, again, I got to count this up, but I realized that these are 6 values. So it's either going to be 0 or 6. How do we come across that? That's the hard part to explain, but it's either going to be 0 or 6. And essentially, again, it tripled, and that made, 6 times 3 is 18, but, value of 0 kind of has a value, so it's kind of weird. So again, it gets even more difficult. So essentially, I just kind of wrote out certain tables. This was just how to understand how byte code works and how you make the math out of it. And this was reflected down at the end of the article where you have certain CV tables that are written like this. It's going to tell you what values you want are on, like highlights and whatnot. And essentially, you can notice, like, if I wanted headlights on and distance lights on, then the total value would be 4, and it doesn't interfere with this number board value of 5. So they have to make sure that these values are unique so they don't interfere when you do math. So for instance, 3 plus 5 is 8, or 3 plus 5 plus 1 is 9. It won't interfere with the cabin light number. How does the decoder interpret that is basically sending out a stream of numbers, and it might encode, it might look like this bottom number. But what they do is they have what they call a check bit, which says, okay, start reading the stream of numbers. Because if you had a constant stream of numbers without a check bit, you would never know where to begin reading the code. Because like if you started here and the numbers were different, then you're sending a completely different wrong set of instructions to the decoder. So there's always a check bit or a parity bit, which tells you when to start reading it. Now back in the 6021 days, which is the push button controllers, what they would do is they would send out a check bit, and then they'd repeat the code again for insurances to avoid any errors. So it was basically you're double checking to make sure that it's receiving the right instruction sets. And the word length here, I don't really know what it was. There was a book that I had somewhere, I can't find it right now, by I think Dr. K, whatever his name, Koenig something. He wrote this code book, and it was partially for, not that he wrote it, but he wrote about it so that you could use the Connect, or maybe an Atari, for instance, and connect it to your layout. With the MFX days, it just got more complex because we were doing now things that were not only, it almost like instead of repeating this code twice, the second word, we would call this like a word or a byte. The second word actually have different sets of instructions. I'm not 100% sure on that information, but it's basically, rather than sending check bits to verify errors, it sent another set of instructions, and MFX just got more and more complex. So this was hard to understand. So essentially, you see how I blocked out the numbers down here? Well, it's sending out different bits of information for each CV that's on a decoder. And if you look at your current decoder list, there's a lot of CVs to deal with. So you know there's a lot of information that's out there. And basically, that's it in a nutshell. Just a heady information, just trying to get a handle on it. Oh, the main thing too, also about this is why can I have the questions that we get is why is the address on my digital signal, if it's the same as my locomotive, how come it doesn't? You know, they're not both switching. Well, it's all because of like a check bit or a parity bit. It's trying to decide what type of device it's being sent out, and in this case, this is why we set on the signal light switch 10 to on or off. If 10 is on, then it's basically saying this number 10 bit here, or this last digit, in some way. See, the way the machine code receives information, it takes this last setting that we read on paper, switch 10, and it sends it out first. And it's basically saying, oh, this is a DCC device, so let's look at this DCC table to see what our instructions are. If it was off, this would be 0 instead of 1, and it would say this is an MFX or an FX decoder, and this is how we're going to parse out this information. It's going to be CV1, it's going to be whatever, how many bits is that, and whatnot. So yeah, that's essentially the article. It's heady, it's nerdy, not anything you would necessarily want to do with. I did get an email from a gentleman who, I think he did mention an Atari or some old programmer that he wants to kind of toy around with it, and you still can, because the Connect boxes, I think it's still in the catalog, honestly. But it's kind of out there. So that's essentially my article. Short, not
Nerd.
overly informative, but there you have it. So let's see. All right. Anything else? Do we have any questions? We do have an open
Yeah, we do
question.
have a question.
Should I bridge the two switches of 74491 turnout electric switch device since I only operate digitally with CS3? Do you know what he's referring to? 74494.
74491 was a turnout motor.
And should he bridge the two switches?
You can certainly do that and they'll last longer. They can still fail. I mean, there's always points of failure for those things. But yeah, it's like a preemptive thing if you're just building a layout and you want to do that, because the micro switch usually is what fails in a turnout motor. That's what I would do. I would definitely bypass those and get a longer life out of them rather than changing them all the time.
But what I'm confused is why would he need to bridge them?
Because it's a micro switch that goes bad in those usually.
All right,
So
I think I need to look up what that is. 74491. What is that? The micro switches go bad on that, but they only have one.
That was my article on how to bypass them once they go bad.
Oh, really? I never really noticed. Because there's only... Are there two switches in there? Did I lose you? It appears. Did I lose you?
So yeah, you can certainly do that. And you know what? I'll send you my article, Curtis, so you can read about it.
Well, I mean, for this mechanism, I didn't really know there were two switches.
Yeah, there's two micro switches.
Oh, are there the stop switches?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand it. Yeah, those are weird. I never really dig too deeply into those. How come my tablet shows many number of articles more than the computer? I believe it sounds like he's referring to the Marklin station the software?
No,
The one
no, he's
for
not.
use for CS2?
He has a CS3, and I'm not sure what the issue is, but I did talk to him about it and see if he might have an answer for it. It's like I don't know if he's just getting some weird data. Um, because he says there's a whole bunch more articles in his article list than on Central Station 3.
Oh, really? And that's through the browser app?
Yeah, the browser, not the app. There's no app. The IP
Yeah,
address.
the only time I would think that you'd have extra switches if you use the app, and that app is non-functional really as far as you wouldn't really want to use that anymore anyways. But the app, that's interesting that he's getting that through the browser. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it might be user error.
Uh, I'll leave that up to you. Feel free to call Rick.
Oh, he will.
How can I change Marklin's 60760 address through my CS3?
That's fairly easy.
You do that on the programming track, right?
Yeah, it has to be on the programming track, and then you get into the edit locos. Um, Unfortunately, I'm not set up with a locomotive that's has a 760 decoder in it on my central station.
I don't know if we can kind of just show them that though. I don't have a
Nope,
locomotive.
down,
Yeah.
not there.
Oops.
There you go.
Sorry.
There it is. On that screen,
Yeah.
all you do is you change the address there that says it's in red.
Yeah.
Once it's already installed in your central station,
You have to
um,
add it into the central station
you have
first.
to add it in central station first, and then you edit it.
Yeah. Through
Go
the
to
edit.
edit locos,
Yeah. And let's
and then okay. And there where it says address 78, you just change that to whatever you want, and it will send the information to the programming track. And
yeah.
you'll see the lights flash on the locomotive when it's programming. Then when they stop flashing, it's done.
But yeah, the 760s need to be on the programming track. It's
Yes.
not an MFX decoder.
That is one use for the programming track that is still viable.
Yeah.
There's only like 3 uses for the programming track.
Yeah,
All
it's all the old FX decoders, not
Mhm.
MFX.
Not
MFX can
not
be done
MFX.
on the min
MFX
gen.
is totally different.
Yeah.
Changing this address where it says 78 in red in this screen on an MFX decoder will not change the default address, which is the MM address that it would respond to on a 6021. That's a totally different article. Well, it's like a recap episode. That's all we're doing is referring to old articles.
Hey, people have questions and we want to answer them. We ran out of stuff to talk about, so I welcome your questions. Is there a newsletter of the other document that gives better examples of how to do function mapping with the 80 slots?
Okay, this is where I got confused. What do you mean by 80 slots lines available? Function mapping doesn't have 80 slots. And I don't know what they're talking about. What controller? And you're still sharing your screen, Curtis. And you're muted, Curtis. Or you're just talking while you're reading. Do your lips move when you read? Can't hear you, Curtis. Okay. But we still can't hear you. Curtis. Curtis, are you listening to me? Can you hear me? Okay. Curtis, no one can hear you. Much as I like to have you muted, did your batteries run out in your Mr. Microphone? Okay, let's see. He's checking stuff out, obviously. We're gonna try and okay. So no, DCC no. Okay, so when you say in the question and answer, it says I'm dipping my toe into Marklin DCC by using Mobile Station 2 to test my LGB locos and have either MFX or MTS decoder. Okay. Um, as the MS2 does not support a dedicated programming track, does it just assume to scroll down here? No. Okay, so on the mobile station, it would go out to the main track, whatever you're programming, it would go out to the main track. I think we got you back now, Curtis. No, you're still gone. Yes. When you're programming with the mobile station 2, you only have that one locomotive on the track. If you have multiple locomotives that can be edited, it will edit them all that way. So you don't want to have more than one locomotive. You're going to have a little bit of trouble with your MTS decoders because they are such old technology that they're not, the technology has surpassed them very much. So the only trouble I've seen with MTS, it is basically a DCC system, but the only trouble I've seen is that the headlight will turn on and off depending on the speed step that you choose. And I don't know if the mobile station will allow you to do it, but on our central station, when you add an MTS locomotive, you put the speed steps all the way up to 128 or as high as they will go, whatever your selection is, and go from there. That keeps the headlights on during your speed steps. And that's about all I remember about the MTS system on the central station. All right, we got you. I hear clicking.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Sorry.
All right.
I think my studio thing had kind of crapped out. All right.
Okay. Any other questions?
Hopefully, can you hear me still?
Yeah, we can hear you. Unfortunately, yes.
How's that? Is that worse?
No, you still sound just as bad as always,
All right. Thank you for that.
except you lost your side, the bars on your side, on the side.
Yeah, I had to shut down the other application that I was
Yeah.
using. Excuse me. All right. All right. Well, at least
Okay.
that seems like you answered some of the questions. So,
I still don't understand what Noel's asking about for the MFX decoder mapping the 80 function lines using CV 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. I don't know what CVs those are. I don't know what you mean by function lines. What are you trying to edit on your on your MFX decoder is what my question is. And what else? Do we have anything else going on?
not that I am aware of. So,
We can, if Noel, here we go.
well, that's an interesting. That is an interesting.
Sorry, we're laughing at the question. I have about 100 locos in my CS3. Some time ago, I took some MFX decoders out of their locos. How do I find which decoder goes into which loco since they have they're all registered? Um, yeah, I know I can think of a couple ways. First off, I would save the profile that I'm currently in, and that's one thing we need to mention more and more because there is somebody out there, Rick, that got into trouble with his layout, that because he wasn't saving the profile and had to go and basically redo his layout in his central station. And I'm not talking just the diagram, I'm talking all the articles, all the M83s, all of that stuff. He's hopefully towards the end of that. But at any rate, I would say, this is to Mike, I would say save your profile.
Yep, go up to
Curtis is
system,
about to show you how to do a profile.
click on the CS3,
You
and
do a save.
data save. Make sure you give it, you see this top number here, CS backup 01? That's generic. That's always going to come up the same. So every time you do a save, it's going to overwrite this one file. So what I would suggest is definitely give it a different name, kind of like what I've done here, so I understand what's happening.
Yeah.
Right?
The least you should do is save it by the date.
Yeah.
That way you know
And
when you
if you,
saved it.
yeah, and if you have a file that you're okay with overwriting, all you have to do is just click on it, and it will overwrite that file. It will fill it in at the top. You can click
Yeah.
OK. You do want to make your, you know, the thing is, if you're developing your layout, don't just overwrite the one file because you want to increment it so you have a way to go back to a known working one. Because, you know, I'm one of those people. I never know when I'm going to mess up the system. So I want to have a safe restore point. When you're ready to restore it, you go back here and you can see all the names are the same. All I have to do is click on that and it's going to load it in, and I have a safe area to recover from.
Yeah, I
So
know another guy that didn't know how to save.
yeah,
Yeah.
and let's call it
Rick.
you know, don't
Let's call
think
him
of it
Rick.
just as a save. Think of it as a recovery file. You want to be able to go back. I mean, look at this list of mine. This is just a lot of iterations on one layout. You know, sometimes the other benefit of doing saves is you can have like one layout that has three different routing purposes, you know, and it's to honestly this like here's confusing. I can't remember which one of these is more current because there's no dating. I didn't put a dating on it. All I know is I did one with an AC S88 and the other one was with a DC S88, which was a boondoggle in its own right. So like I would probably delete these, you know. So you want to make sure that you have a fallback somewhere that you can date. I have dated files here, uh, 2022 May, and then this is the first version change that I did to it. So I always have something to fall back on that I can recover from. So do save your stuff.
Yes.
And
Okay. So back to his question, I would probably do a save. I would load a different profile or the blank profile of lear.zip. And then I would take that one locomotive without a decoder and, say a handful of your decoders. Seems how if they're 21 pin, it'll go in any locomotive, just put it in the locomotive, let it register, and it'll tell you the name and what locomotive it's for. Basically, at that point, it
yeah.
should have an icon too.
You can see I have a restore point. I emptied one out so it was completely blank. So when I load it up, and this should still be blank
Yeah,
unless
that's
it,
what the lear.zip is also. Completely blank.
and it looks like I did a save and not a restore. But yeah, so there's an empty profile in there. Let's see if we can find that again. So that's
Um,
is it
it's either that or you can do that instead of putting in a locomotive. If you have the decoder tester, you can slap it on the tester and let it load. But the thing is, you have to let it load in a profile where it hasn't loaded before. And that's why we say load a different profile or the blank profile right there, lear.zip.
let's open that up.
And every locomotive you put on the track will be a new locomotive to it. So
It's not taking through the it's not taking through the VNC viewer. See,
no,
so it's not
well,
taking.
it's okay. It's the
Yeah, it's the same process. Just
same
go
process.
Lear. Click OK. And it would ask if you want to restore this, but Apparently VNC viewer doesn't want to, it's ignoring it. All of them. Amen. Okay. All right. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so we do have a question regarding events. Let's see if I can actually show this.
Okay, grab your milk and cookies and your blanket, because Curtis is gonna put you to sleep.
Okay, so what the question is, we have a gentleman who basically has a sequence of events that he basically programmed in by hand, but he wants to have it looped rather than having it. I don't know how he's triggering it. It's triggered once. He wants to maybe be able to shut it off when he hits the control bar. So what I will do is let's actually create an event here. I'll just create an event. So this, we're going to go off with the basic one. And rather than just kind of creating the event here, what we're going to do is we're going to select on add, and we're going to actually use the macro loop. Okay. And what happens is the macro loop creates another container. So you can see up here at the top, FS14 is the event I created. But what happens is there is a loop container here. And it says loop 1, and that's the one we actually want to do it. So now I'm looking at the loop 1 container, and what you're going to do is this is where you're going to actually add. I can close this, I can move this out of the way, and I'll just do random stuff. So I'm just going to add this in here, add that in there, turnouts, blah blah blah, and then you can do all your timing. You know how it is. You click on this, you can add your delays. Okay, this delay, by the way, is the delay before it moves to the next stop. So it's going to activate the switch first, then count off the delay, and then go to the next step. This loop is all here generated by that. And then you can actually create a conditional stop. Let's see if I can do this here. I'm trying to remember what it is. So there's a control condition that you can have, and this sort of gets a little wonky here. We'll just add this in here, see if we can do this. So this conditional here, and conditions are weird. There's an article about it. It's probably better that I refer you to that, because it's just rather than me fumbling around trying to tell you where it is. There's a way that you can have conditions stop based on these conditions or loops. And let's go back to the event here. Again, that was FS14, so it's on page 1. Okay, open that. So rather than being manual mode, this is how you can start or stop it. There's a trigger. Trigger is basically when we use track controls to trigger it, but you can also have the trigger doing system go. The loop will automatically start when the CS3 sets to go mode. In other words, you're playing power to the track. You can also set it for, this is weird how it has, let's say, a CS3 halt. When you stop this CS3, does it activate the loop? But in our sense, we think it should basically deactivate the loop, because if your CS3 is off, why would you have anything looping? Right? So it's a little bit of weird language. So this is a moment of discovery for both of us, right? But essentially this is how you loop it. You're, rather than the event that he programmed into an event itself, you actually want to program the event in the loop instead, the loop macro. So again, we are looking at the event that's triggered. The event is triggered by the track, but since the loop is part of the event, we need to go to the loop function itself. That's this one here. And you want to actually program your events in here. Okay. Now, just kind of the one caveat that I would try to let you know about, in case you're not sure, the loop is going to begin at the beginning at this first point. It's not gonna, like, if this is specific that has to be started, you have to make sure you start the loop at the same point. Otherwise, you know, your loop is going to begin at some other place that you don't want it to. So it's a synchronizing thing that you want to be aware of. So that's you're probably more than likely you're going to run across the error as you're programming this in, and then that's just the explanation of what it is. So I can't really tell you how to fabricate it. You have to look at your own layout because it's all specific to your layout. And so that hopefully that answers your question. If not, go ahead and Bob, send us another email if you're still kind of confused about that. So, did you draw that? Are you drawing something on the layout? Let's stop share. Okay. Let's see. Other questions. Loaded a bunch of CS2 images and now is very slow starting up on the CS2. Yes, we ran
Yes.
into that same problem,
Yes.
John.
Get rid of the ones you don't need. And yeah, it'll help it. I mean, the CS2 we're assuming is pretty much at its end of its update life. We don't know for sure, but there hasn't been an update for it in a while. And so I wouldn't really expect much more out of CS2. I'd be surprised
Yeah.
myself, actually.
So tell you the part of the story on this one here is that Rick and I, back when we had the CS2, we took photos of all our locomotives so we can load them in there. And I think one time Rick loaded all the images on my CS3, and then it felt like it was at a dead stop. It just drove me nuts. Plus, I think we learned things about um, image files too. They can actually, depending on how you edit your files, the software that you do the editing on can kind of put code in there to say, oh, this is developed on this software, so we're going to load this in there so it makes it faster for you. But that just added the weight to the picture. In other words, rather than it being like 1 or 4 kilobytes of information, it'd be 15 kilobytes of information. So that just slows the CS2 down even further. Um, I don't know. I think we probably have the same effect on the CS3, except the CS3 has a much faster processor, so we don't notice it anymore. Um, the CS2, it was an early version. It was slow. So,
It was fast for us at the time.
yeah, it was fast for us at the time. Um, yeah. So there was a comment on the 80 lines on the CVs. I don't really know if it needs a comment. Yeah. Yeah, the CV's values when you're looking at them can be cryptic. The CS3 lays out options
Okay,
for you.
yeah, I
Yeah.
see. He's talking about how many lines of CVs. There's more than 80
Oh yeah,
CVs.
there's a crazy amount, and
Yeah.
it's just yeah.
Um, and for that, if you're doing that, the workaround we usually do, because they're multi-protocol decoders, we turn off the MFX protocol and then we register the locomotive manually as a DCC locomotive. And at that point, you can enter a CV value, so to say, and then edit it and then write it. I'm making it sound way more simple than it is. It's not hard, but I don't think I need to explain how to do that, since how we're not set up to demonstrate that. But yeah, I mean that is how simple it is, but it's not that simple to see. So yes, you can do that. Uh, oh, um, the gentleman is asking for the newsletter article on your.
Yeah, I was just typing a response. That's
Okay.
why it was not blank. What is the meaning of the symbol with look? Oh,
Oh,
you just
did I
yeah,
delete the wrong one?
yeah, I think you did. Let me scroll down. Glad you guys are asking questions. Let's
Yeah.
see. What is the meaning of the symbol with the locomotive I and plus or X mark? You may see. Oh, this is at the top of the CS3 screen. Let me share that again. Share. I believe you're referring to these type of eye.
Oh,
Skills.
yes.
Have an
Those are basically sort windows,
So, for instance, it just if by
sort
default
conditions.
everything is sort of being shown, but if you only want to see what the S88 contacts are, you can kind of select that. It's a filter for the view.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to have an effect, probably because
Well,
what's
no, that's in the article list,
oh
and you were looking
oh
for the effect
yeah.
in
Let's
the
open up the
inventory.
article list. Yeah, let's open up here. S88 contacts. Bing. See, it just kind of limits your view. Let's say you wanted to see your turnouts. It comes in handy when you want to edit stuff. The previous skill had a zillion S88s, so that would interfere show alls by a default. Even if this was off, it would show everything. Same thing with the track view, I believe. Is that right? Let's try this S88 contacts. Yeah, you see how it just eliminates, it grays out everything, so you can just focus on S88s. If I close that out, let's go to turnouts. See, it's funny how the S88s still show up. They don't really hide, right? So, let's see what it does when we hit signals. So signals are there, turnouts are great, but the S88s, maybe because the S88s are just yellow by nature, so I don't think it needs to gray those out. So yeah, it just sorts out. It's a pre-sort kind of thing. So, let's see. Yeah, great. A lot of questions here. Can you select event stop for select events, but not all events? Um,
Yes, you can, but I forget
yeah,
how.
yeah. Event stopping. Usually in that case, I might just have an event stop just for the specific event rather than. Depends on how you apply it. Um, yeah, it's kind of a rabbit hole because it's a spider web of. It's kind of like Rick's article. You have multiple ways that you can wire up a brake module. You have multiple ways that you can kill events. Um, so just kind of play with that. I'm sure I'll have more questions from you, and because it's you, I'm going to let Rick answer them. See how good he goes. If he doesn't pick up the call, you know how it works. I'll pick up your call.
Yeah. Click.
Yeah. Regarding loc images and loading your own, is there an optimal size for JPEG images as they can be scaled? Well, that's a very good question.
Yes, there is.
I don't really know what the limits are on the CS3. The CS2 was very
No,
specific.
I have it. It'll
Yeah.
take me a minute to find it, but I have
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, the CS2 was really specific. They had to be kind of tiny, but the CS3 allows for larger image size. Um, I would honestly, you don't really have to use the full bit depth like a 64-bit photo. You could probably drop it down to 8. I mean, all you really need is a representation of what it looks like. It's kind of up to
Yeah.
you on that. I'll let Rick continue to look for that.
It's I know I did it in an article, but I think I could find it faster in the book, the old book.
Okay, so Bert, let me
Um,
go back to your question here.
yeah, keep
Oh,
keep
okay, yeah,
talking while I'm looking.
yeah. So yeah, thanks for clarifying, Bert. So I believe you're referring to, oh yeah, you're referring to this top control button. Um, oh, sorry, I should share the screen again. So the question actually was referring to events. He's referring to this control button. Um, but essentially, let's actually look at the way this is important for us, for instance, is during your manual mode. Let's see if I can actually have it. I don't know if I have that macro over here. So rather than being manual, it's an automatic. So the way I use it is, and it's not, this is the wrong icon up here. The way I use many of these functions is that we use contact tracks. And the way a contact track works is we have what I'll call either an arrival or a departure trigger. So the way it works is this plus, think of it as the contact track itself. And the way it's drawn is it means the locomotive is going to make contact with that contact track, and that initiates this event. The alternative is that the plus might be behind the locomotive. That means that if the train is on the contact track, it's not going to activate the event, but when the train leaves that contact track, then it activates the event. This is kind of a poor example because this is based on an LGB layout. So let me kind of load up an event. Let me load up an actual layout example here. So hopefully this will work because we're having trouble loading layouts. So we don't want the full random. We'll do the 6 train. So let's load this up. There we go. So is that a little? Are we on the right track for answering your question, Bert? So. Okay. All right. So here's my events list. Let's look up K21. K21. So you see how I labeled it K21A? That was a label for me. That means that I want this event to be activated on arrival. And you can see the icon it's when the train makes contact with that contact track. So let me slide this up so you can actually see kind of what I'm talking about. Screen resolution. So essentially what happens is my train is coming from this left side, and when it makes contact with this track, in other words, this is the default state where it would be off. When it makes contact with this track, then it enables this set of events. Now the option is that if I'm editing this and I'm using a position, this one here, okay, and you can see now the icon changes. So essentially what's happening is when the train makes exit this, then it activates these 2 events. So let me reset this so I don't mess up my layout. Now you might also be referring, and you can see up at the top it doesn't have that control button up here because we're actually already in edit events mode. Okay, so let's now actually look at this because you might be referring to this. What does this do? Unfortunately, I can't answer this, but there are functions under this that might actually initiate or halt all events. And I don't know if there's any way, I don't know if we'd really use this for individuals. You know, this could be an emergency button, right? If something's going wrong with the layout, we need to just halt events so that we can figure out what's going on. But you can see I'm not connected to a layout, so it's giving me a red warning sign that for this S88. There's an I don't know what the I is that you're referring to. Oh, let's see. So I think it's also possible. Let's go back into edit mode, edit event. Let's actually edit it. So there is these positions, contact triggers. I kind of know what you're talking about. I can't really replicate this situation right now. Yeah. Because there were different settings for contacts. Let me see if I can actually create a new event. See what's going on here. Add event. You don't want to add a macro. Manuals. Because there used to be different icons for stuff, and it was kind of like we didn't really touch those. We might want to take this offline, Bert, and just kind of refer.
Oh, I know. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I had seen that before. I don't remember where you get the I symbol. I remember you did for a while.
Yeah. I mean, it shouldn't have. Yeah, I kind of vaguely remember seeing that. Those are control. I think those were those control contact issues. Yeah, it's weird. Where did we see that? Let's see. Controlling contacts.
I'm wondering, yeah, is your CS3 updated to current?
Yeah, this one is. But I'm gonna actually change this to controlling contact here and see what it is, because there's something about what he's asking.
Was it a macro? Wasn't it a macro to just look at a position of a
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
a turnout or
yeah, I think you're right. So this is K1. Let's create an event here. Add an event. Let's see if I can add K1 and see what it does. Close that. Just navigating these little windows. This would drive me nuts sometimes when I had a lot of programming to do.
yeah.
There's K1. Let's add that in here. Oh, let's add it in here. Manual mode. No. Yeah, I can't remember. Position. Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't really answer that question right now. I mean, they've done software changes too on me, and it's like trying to figure out what's gone. So, yeah. If you can, if you can do a screen grab, that might help us out too. But I think we're kind of at a loss there. So,
Well, what do you want to get to? Do we have any more questions?
I don't know.
Rick thinks we're the best.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah,
Appreciate
he's
that.
probably showing us that we're number one.
Better than number two. Well, we can do an unboxing for you guys.
Let me show some product that I pulled first. We did just get a new contain. We did get a container in.
Oh, wait! I do have a question on YouTube. Can you describe how you would put an uncoupler action into an event? For example, activate uncoupler, the drive forwards, and release uncoupler. Would the M83 serve this purpose? Yeah, M83 has a duration event.
Well, it sounds like he's also trying to control a locomotive in an event also.
Yeah, the way I would think is it would sort of be a half manual operation. Let's see, I actually have. Let's see. My brain is processing and trying to get around to where I need to be. I actually have like uncoupler tracks here on this portion of my layout. I mean, I'm not sharing the layout, so you wouldn't know. I actually have uncoupler tracks here on this lower portion for loading. I've often thought about how I would use an uncoupler. An M83 would work. Essentially, you couldn't automate this. I don't know if that's 100% correct, because I've actually thought about, can you do something like this on a yard, like a hump yard? So let me ask you this, Rick. Maybe you have an answer for this one. To use the uncoupler track, doesn't it require? Does it require? It doesn't really require a locomotive direction change, does it?
Uncoupler? No.
So you could just basically, as the train is running, you can
You can just click the button. Yeah, I mean, you can put a
open up the
contact.
uncoupler as the train is actually moving in one direction only. You wouldn't have to stop it to release tension. Is that right?
Well, you would, for a hump yard, you would like push it up the hill.
Yeah.
And then as each car got to the point, it would uncouple. But with the different lengths cars, I mean, I guess it's possible, but it would be really tedious and not sure what kind of trigger you would use. And
So, yeah, that's a good question. So there's a couple ways that I might think about this. Let's see if I can actually add an event here. Not that I have an uncoupler on here. Actually, let me back up a little bit. Let's actually create an article. I don't know if this is going to be messy. Let me Um, why don't I get out of this? I'm going to kind of set up something here and you can talk about something. And I'll see if we can answer this question afterwards. So I'm going to refer to you, Rick. Go ahead.
Well, I can go back to the images in the CS3. They need to be in a PNG format and 384 by 144 pixels. So if anyone wants to grab a pen and find a piece of paper, PNG format 384 by 144 pixels is what the manual says. So that's basically that. So let me show you some product that we got in. This is actually, we've had this for a while, I believe. But I don't know if you ever saw this one, Curtis. Orange Austrian crocodile.
Yeah, I did see it.
And I saw it out there on the shelf and said, hey, wait a minute, how come I missed this one? Probably because I was broke. I'm not going to take it out of the box, but it is a nice looking locomotive, the orange Austrian crocodile with a 39090. We have 3 of them left, so if you contact your dealer and you're looking for that, that is a nice little locomotive. 39090. We have the 2024 LGB Christmas cars. Not too late. Still need to get yours if you want to. And look at this, Curtis. I just saw, I think these just came in because I haven't seen these. This is like a nice little DB
Yeah.
Schenker semi trailers on a flat car. That's a nice list. I can see about 3 of these running down the track. We still have the HO Christmas car. If anybody wants the HO Christmas car, 48424. 48424. I already have mine. Sure, Curtis has his. I don't know if did anything come in this car? Do you know? I don't think anything comes in it.
No, that's the yeah. That's I think we talked about. We showed that last time.
And this one came in. This one I can take out of the box. So somebody's going to get a used one, even though I'm not going to run it. This is just a nice little. I love this color. This locomotive. It's the reissue of the 3013 in this pale green. The camera doesn't really pick it up that well,
Oh
but it's
yeah,
this
yeah.
great pale green.
I got a brown one without a motor.
That was a different locomotive. That was the Italian one. But
That's
this one is that doesn't really say a country. That's got the old Marklin logo on it on the front. Great color on this, and I know there's some of those bright blue cars out there too, which look wonderful also. Let's look. I'll put this back later. Stare at that for a while because that's a nice color. We just got the ET85 in. If anyone's looking for the ET85, your dealer should have it soon. This is actually the last one we had on the shelf that we got in this shipment.
Hey Rick, can you give us the part number on that Schenker double set that you showed?
Oh, I didn't do that, did I?
Yeah, somebody was asking.
That is part number 47470. 47470.
Okay, I just sent them. I put that in.
Yeah. And then that's it. Honestly, I've been so busy. I didn't have time to pull a lot of product for this show, for this webinar. And obviously I wasn't prepared. Curtis has no excuse.
Hey, I'm only half prepared. All right.
Um,
So let's. I'm kind of set up for at least talking about maybe the our first stab at an uncoupler setup.
Okay. And then we can get into, look what I got. Oh,
Yeah.
the gentleman said this is a Dutch locomotive. Okay, that's a Dutch locomotive. I didn't look it up in the catalog. But there you have it. It's beautiful.
Okay, and I think I'm going to need a locomotive here, so let me add a random one here. There you go, that'll work. Okay, not that it really matters. Okay, so here's the last. So basically, somebody wanted to know how I would go about maybe setting up an event for an uncoupler track. This gets tricky because you can have part of the problem is if you have, like he says, he's got an Orient Express, which is kind of a heavy car set. So there's a lot of tension. The other problem you have is if you're using current conducting couplers, and obviously now we're dealing with passenger cars, and it gets a little weird because those things have so much tension on them that sometimes you have to manually pull them apart. But if you have something like freight loads that have its own set of weight, one thing I would consider, let's actually think about, you have to think about direction of travel, for instance. So let's, in this sense, let's look at travel from left to right, and your uncoupling load is going to be on the right-hand side. So what I might do in this case is, you got to think about it. The train's going across. I'm not necessarily concerned with K1 at this point. But if we're moving in one direction, what I would probably do first is, and I'm setting up the event now. Now this is sort of you're automating something. Obviously, you can maybe do this if you're manually automating it. So what I would do is if the train crosses K2, that's going to be my trigger. And the moment it activates, that means that I have a train going on here. And at this point, this is where I would actually activate the uncoupler. And I want it to be, and
See, there's the eyes he's talking about.
So this is train detection. It's basically saying, is there, I don't really know how it applies to an uncoupler device, but essentially it's saying, it's like a contact track. I think this first one on the left is, do you see a train, or is a train on this section of track?
Yes.
And the icon with the eye on the X means, is there not a train on this track? So it's sort of like the same thing as the contact track. It's just another icon. They used to have these together in one thing, like you'd have 5 choices here, but it's, obviously it's not there. But which is interesting is the uncoupler it only has one aspect. So how does this actually get triggered? So let's get out of edit mode and let's see what happens if I try to activate this trigger. So this might not be the right icon. So let's
oh yeah.
No, I'm in stop mode. Yeah, thanks. Let's try that off. Let's see what that does. Okay, so you have this, right? So essentially, let's see what happens if I hit this. You see how it makes contract? It just activates that trigger, right? So the trick is in the event mode itself, or the article list. So what you would actually be doing is you would actually be activating, you could activate this contact track with the M83 because you can set a duration on the M83. The other way you can do it is, and it's kind of up to you. You actually could probably do this with an M84 as well. In other words, you set it, then your event would be, let's go back to my event list. I'll set up another event here just so we know. So this is one event. You can set up a delay. I don't know if the delay is going to do anything, so a 2-second delay. And let me turn that off. So I'm going to actually activate this manually just to see what happens. So if I click this on, yeah, see, it doesn't really do anything. This is weird because it's an M83. But if I connected it to an M84, for instance, output, I would have 2 states, on or off. But unfortunately, this this event icon, it's weird because there's no other position other than this, right? So you might want to try with these two to see if that actually works. So you would have, you would probably have this icon twice, right? Let's see, and this is another thing. You can't have two of the same icons without something in between it. So then if that's the case, I would add a text and we'll just leave that blank and I'd have another one. Now I can have two of these. This is something definitely I would play with. I can't answer that right now because obviously I'm mocking it up and I'm not actually don't have the hardware to see what's doing it. So good question. I think what I'll do is maybe I'll save this for an article and then you guys can have something to read with and you can experiment with it. But yeah, it's a tricky one. The other problem here is when you have something that's got such a heavy draw load, I don't know if you can actually automate it. You'd have to think about this where the train stops, reverses a little bit to draw tension, then activate the coupler and pull it off. But you can see from square one, I don't really have a clear way of knowing how to activate the event. You know, it could be doing this and then doing this.
Not to add to your long-winded explanation there, but I see it as a problem if you have long and short cars.
Yeah, and this is why, like on a hump yard, this is ideal because you're just going to have it whenever the first car, like I'd have this really close to the uncoupler track. So it just
Right.
knows that the first car is going to be there. If you, so I'm glad you brought that up because I actually kind of thought
Yeah.
about how we had to do that. If you actually wanted to kind of garner a length, there's a lot of pre-planning that you might have to do, but in lieu of that, let's say you had specific length stuff that you could target. I'm trying to get to the track planning stuff. Here you go, let a track. Like for instance, maybe I'd pull this over here. So this would initially state when there's a train on there, but if I have a specific length where I want to activate, I'd use this as a trigger instead of that. So you might have multiple events, but you'd have to qualify it. And that's where life gets difficult, is how do I qualify one instance from another? And again, it gets really heady. So that's a lot
Yeah.
I think it's a lot for the webinar. But
So
hopefully you get an idea on that one, John. That's our YouTube user, our YouTube viewer.
one question we had real quick was on this Dutch locomotive. Oh, you're still sharing
Okay.
on the little you're still sharing.
Oh, I thought you said while I was still sharing. I thought you wanted me
No,
to.
that's you. That's you. You're the one that's sharing. On this little Dutch locomotive, it's asking for the part number and it's 30131. So there you go. 30131. Nice retro box.
Okay.
Um
I'll prep my unboxing. I got one more.
yeah, I have to find mine. Oh, so now we'll get into the look what I got section. While you're doing that, Curtis, I won't take your thunder. But remember this set from a couple months ago
Yeah.
that I picked up at Eurowest?
Yeah.
But it had this locomotive in it, even though this is one of the correct locomotives for it. It's the wrong box.
Yeah.
A little steam locomotive. And what I like about these is these are the old Premex where there's a lever here to reverse it. There's no reverse mechanism in here. You have to do it with a lever. Okay. Well, I had mentioned on that webinar, if someone knew of a locomotive for it, and lo and behold, I got the locomotive for it. See that? So now it's a complete set again from 1969. And this locomotive is in great condition, and it's got the lever. It works. It just needed a little bit of oil, and off it went. I think I changed this. I changed the slider also, but I'm really happy. I mean, I don't normally do this, but being that this set was so inexpensive, and now it's complete. It's really kind of a
You
neat
got
little
Premix.
neat little thing for the collection, basically. And the other look what I got is, I think, the same as Curtis's look what I got. If you can hear me. So, what do you got, Curtis?
Well, I got my diesel locomotive. Wish I knew when to pull it out here. I got 2 locomotives and a big box, which I believe is what you're going to reveal. So let me kind of slide this out. The whole process, boxing and unboxing, because
What's the part number?
this is part number 39074. And I just kind of love it because it's white. It's the Euro Cargo. Pull it out. There you go. Right there.
Oh, nice. That's the class 66.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I've after seeing somebody at the club, the ET, had run a white locomotive. Actually, it was a white TGV set, and it was like, oh, those are really kind of slick. So I've kind of gravitated towards a lot of the white stuff.
See, it's only one step away from all the photo gray stuff.
Yeah. And the problem is getting it back in the box.
Did you get a big box?
I did get a big box, and you might be showing that one if it's the same thing I got. So
I think it's the same thing, but I'm not sure. I'm not showing. I'm not ruining your
you certainly can.
your little Christmas.
It's going to take me. I also have this locomotive. I'll just show the box. It's 39698.
Oh yeah, that rail bus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the
that was pretty
MHI.
sick. Yeah. So kind of happy about that one. Get this back box up. And yeah, you can steal my thunder if I am.
All right. Well, here it is, and
If it's
it's
different in my box, I'll let you know.
it's old news for everyone else but us. And you think we have any perks working for Marklin? No, we don't. We get our stuff last. So look what I got, Curtis.
Yeah, that's what I got. Same thing.
And I finally got mine, I think on Wednesday last week. And I have not even opened it yet to look at it. I have not had the time to do so. Partially because I haven't paid for it yet. So
Believe it or not, mine came.
yours just showed up yesterday.
Mine came in yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yesterday. I had the 2 locomotives that I received 3 weeks ago, and
Yeah.
just kind of left them boxed up until today, or today. So.
Yeah, these have been out. We finally got our last batch. So if anyone's still waiting for theirs, they are going out to the dealers last week and this week, so you should have it soon. That's why we finally got ours. We don't get ours. We don't get the first ones, believe it or not. We usually have to wait till the end. That's just one of the perks for working for Marklin.
Yeah, they please the customers first, and then wait for all the bugs, and then wait for us to figure out if there are any bugs. Anyways, well, anything else? I think that's about it for us, isn't it? This has been one of our longer shows in a long time. So,
Yeah.
it's a number on the. Oh, you already answered that one.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Any last minute questions that you guys might have? This is always that last minute stall. Let's see what do we got. Hope you all have happy holidays. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Rick was just last weekend. He was at
No, we didn't go.
the last show last weekend. Was it last?
No,
week?
we didn't do it. It got canceled.
Wait, what are you referring
Well,
to?
no, it wasn't last week, a weekend, 3 weeks ago, we were at Train Fest.
Oh, was that 3 weeks ago already?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I thought it was like last week or something.
No, no, no. That was a different thing that got canceled.
Okay. Anyways, yeah, once again,
So, oh, and look, I
Christmas
still
tree.
have my brochure and my order form. Haha. Mine is 100% complete. You got that, Curtis? You get that?
Not my order form.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Anyways, okay, looks like I do not
Anyway,
have any more questions.
yeah.
We wish you guys all a Merry Christmas. Thanks for joining us again for the 2024 year. We will we will have a revised article index and
Yeah,
webinar
in the next.
index so you guys can kind of look up information. Hopefully, any of those questions that we couldn't really clearly answer, we know how difficult that is. Send us emails. Hopefully, we can do more research. The question definitely about the uncoupler track. That's
Yeah,
gonna
that's kind of a sticky wicket there.
it's gonna be fun to explore that one if we can.
Um, don't forget to save your profiles on your central stations.
Yep. Save and restore.
Yes.
Ignore all that stuff about bitcode. You
Yeah.
don't need it unless you want it. You know.
Unless you're trying to go to sleep.
Yeah. So, and I think that's about covers it. So we will see you in probably our next webinar is in
February,
February.
probably February something or other, second Wednesday or so in February,
Yeah, second
which
Wednesday.
would be
What date is that?
February 12th
Yes.
next
So
year.
February 12th is our next sign. What our articles are, we don't know yet.
We don't know. Give us some ideas because we do run out and we do try and incorporate some of your ideas in articles,
Yeah,
or if you give us the idea,
we do try.
we don't tell anyone about it, but we do the article.
Some questions we don't always. A lot of times you'll get referrals to other newsletters. I think the next show is the Big E, is it not? In January?
The next show is going to be Amherst
Yeah, Amherst.
at the end of January, 25th and 26th, I think.
I think you're slated for that one, right?
I really don't know. It's not, I don't have a schedule for next year yet,
Yeah,
but I think we are going because we were very busy at the last one.
yeah, yeah. So we'll see. They'll let me know. I'm
Yeah.
sure you'll know. All right. I think that's gonna be it for us. Just shy of 2 hours. Sorry for the technical difficulties as well. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Be safe, be warm, enjoy your time with your families.
Yes.
So,
We will see you in February.
yeah. All right. Take care, everybody. I'm gonna end this live stream now.
All
All
right.
right. Ciao.